Africa tapping, tapping. Africa tapping, tapping. Africa tapping, tapping, tapping to the motherland.
Very proud of my intro, Steve. William, I'm very proud of my intro. I made that intro this morning, William.
It's fire. It's fire. I like it.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. You know what? Just for that, we're going to listen to it one more time.
Africa tapping, tapping. Africa tapping, tapping. Africa tapping, tapping, tapping to the motherland.
Now, y'all know I have to like mix it properly and everything, but
I'm actually just realizing it's your voice. I hadn't realized it was you the first time.
Was Africa.
Yeah, I hear it. I hear it now. Yeah.
William, where are you joining us from today?
I'm from the capital of Kenya, the neocolonial capital, Nairobi.
Nairobi. There's a whole big case going on in Kenya right now in the Masai Mara. Are we talking about that at all today?
Oh, yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
All right. Well, we are very fortunate, y'all, to be doing the Africa Tap-In with William Sakawa. And William, I'm going to give the floor to you. Tell us what's going on the motherland in your region.
Sure thing. First of all, thank you very much. I hope you've been okay since the last time we spoke. That's like, 2 months ago?
Yeah, I mean, we're all just trying to...
Yeah, it's capitalism. You get it. Yeah.
So,
about what's happening, we'll start with the Masai story. So I think a lot of us will know Marriott Hotels, the luxury brand of hotels. So there's a big video that's been doing the rounds where you have the staff of this hotel, Marriott, in the Masai Mara, the world famous Masai Mara, Lion King. You might remember it from that.
I've been there.
You have staff who are like shooing away the wildebeest, and they have these route for migration. So that's of course rightfully caused quite a stir among Kenyans because it's outrageous, but it's also emblematic of a much bigger problem. So first of all, this is the route the wildebeest have used for centuries to migrate. There's probably like DNA history in it. Like this is the shallowest point of the river to cross. This is the safest from crocodiles and hippos. So you have it's not just random. There's a method to it, and then you have this multinational hotel coming and just placing its hotel smack in the middle of the migration route. So yeah, you have the Masai elder who went.
What was the reason that they chose that particular spot? Isn't it next to like a river or something?
Yes. It was at the border between Kenya and Tanzania, between the Masai Mara and the Serengeti. I think a lot of it has to do with the mentality of the modern day conservationists, because it's like a whole movement, and unfortunately, it's the face of it is white. And the bit I find most insulting is that you've had Africans who've lived for centuries, if not millennia, with elephants, with the cheetahs, with the antelopes, with the wildebeests. And suddenly you coming from Europe, from London, from Brussels, from Washington, wherever, and then you're coming and telling these people, actually, I think how you guys could better relate to the environment, could better relate with nature. Like, the only reason there are elephants in Africa is because Africans did not go around killing all of them for ivory. Right?
Right.
So how do you come to my house and tell me how I should do things when I've been doing it for centuries, if not thousands of years? So that's a bit I find most insulting. But then if this bit doesn't make sense, then what are they truly here for? I firmly believe it's about control of land and control of resources. Basically just saying colonialism never really ended, we still have it here. The most visible aspect of it, I find, is the displacement of the Masai, of these pastoralist communities from their lands. And it's sort of, there's two sides of messed up to it, because the more climate change affects the planet, the less we have resources in terms of pasture, in terms of water. So you have less resources. And then you have these conservationist companies or conservationist figures, the Prince Williams, the whatever, all of them. And then they come and tell you, actually, you guys need to move a bit more.
So
So
when they're
already,
calling it conservationism, because we just had a really brilliant woman, Joy Malonza on here talking about conservationism. What makes them conservationists? Because I think that they seem to present like they're conserving environment, but they're really conserving colonialism. Would you agree?
100%. I mean, that's exactly how I put it. The main agenda here is basically about control of African resources, control of African land. Uh, if you look, for example, the Marriott Hotel you're talking about that opened in the Masai Mara, they're charging $3,500 a night. That's not the 1% of the 1% of Kenyans are the only people who could possibly afford to go and stay overnight at the Marriott Hotel. So you have something that has this much impact on the ecosystem being the reserve of a very, very small minority. Of here we're speaking about the very few wealthy Kenyans, and of course the white people who like to come to the Masai Mara, like to go on safari game drives. But ultimately, it's about control of African land. This is basically colonialism in continuation. If we think colonialism ended, it's still here. It's still here, and this is the perfect example of it. So, I mean, to the point about the populist. So you have people who are already disenfranchised by climate change. There's fewer pasture, there's fewer water,
Yeah.
and now suddenly they have to move again to where there's even fewer pasture and fewer water because conservationists from the West come and tell them, yeah, we need this land to conserve animals. And again, just back to the point you made earlier, the only reason these animals are with us today is because the indigenous people, conserved it. How many elephants are there in Europe? Oh, maybe that's a bad example, but how much?
No,
How
well, I
much?
can actually give you an example. So in Ireland, they had actually, I'll come back to this, but in Ireland, they had actually hunted I think it was the fox. They hunted the fox like to extinction in Ireland. And so they literally had messed up and let me say this also, it's probably not the Irish that did that, right? It's the British who come and colonize and they do this, but they mess up the ecosystem because now they kill the super predator, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So not super predator, that's not the word I mean, but y'all know what I'm saying. So what happened is they literally have to now reintroduce wildlife to the landscape because humans disrupted it. My thing is, why is it always the same humans doing this? Can we crack the code?
I forget what African scholar said this, but his whole argument was that the reason, or yeah, basically the reason why colonialism was morally okay, the reason they could go to sleep at night knowing they were going to do all this messed up stuff is because of the climate they were in. I'm not saying whether it's valid or not, I'm just presenting a theory. So he says the cold, harsh climate where you go for months without maybe crops that could grow, where the wildlife, where life in general goes underground, that kind of developed a cold sentimentality to them, which is why now they're these grubby people. And an analogy that I usually find funny is they say, if you lived in Britain, that cold, wet, sunless island, and you got the chance to leave that island and go somewhere warmer, you should do it. So yeah, that's
Right.
just the theory.
They're
Yeah.
just cold. They're miserable. So they acted
But
up.
they just start to do it. It's in their nature. But again, I'm not saying like I'm supporting the theory or not. I'm just presenting it.
Dang. So what I did see is, so I just wanted to show you guys. So up top here, where you see that line, that is where the hotel is built. It's on that border, to my understanding. And as you can see, there's a river, the Mara River. The hotel is built on the Mara River. And so the wildebeests, they travel through the Mara River, and it's a very like William said, it's a low crossing. It's where the river is the shallowest. And it's also not just wildebeests that travel this river. I mean, that travel this migration. I know that there's other animals too that are traveling this migration. What it also says though is that, they don't care about anything, bro. Like, I know that we say like, oh, they just don't think we're human. But I mean, to my understanding, like, these type of folks don't even care about humans either. So why would they care about wildebeests? But it's not just that wildebeests are, and let me just show you so some of y'all can see what wildebeests are. So here's the wildebeest crossing at the Mara. Okay, look how many wildebeests there are. So here's my question to you, William. Aside from keeping the wildebeests alive, what is the connection of these animals to the Masai Mara besides just literally just, and I know there's I know the answer to this, but I'm just asking for the sake of answering. But what is the, because then I think these folks are like, what's the big deal? They'll just have to reroute. Which is just, I just need y'all to know this, all the white people on here. If I'm walking down the street, if I'm walking on a sidewalk and white people are walking on that sidewalk, I'm in a revolution. I'm in my own little revolution, William. I'm not moving. I'm not. And I was in Grenada the other day on my island, William, and there was a walk, and I was like, I see these 3 British people walking towards me, and I was like, I hope they know I'm not moving. We might have to scrap right here on this little pathway. They moved. They moved to the side. They were like, good morning, good morning. I was like, good. Good. Remember where you are. So please, what is the connection of the animals beyond simply just like we respect that they have their route?
I think the chief reason that the animals migrate is to look for pasture. You've seen the sizes of the herds of the wildebeest. So you can imagine a lot of them in the same place would obviously consume a lot of grass and a lot of vegetation. So it makes sense that when the vegetation becomes lower, and then there's the other side, which is basically unexploited, that they simply cross the river and go to the other side. And I think that the most important, as you say, they could simply reroute. Let's remember that wildebeest have not started crossing from the Masai Mara to the Serengeti yesterday. This is something that is centuries upon centuries of tradition, which means many wildebeest generations before them had the opportunity or had the chance to like explore different parts of the river. And they had basically, settled on the fact that, if we go this way, then we'd have the best chance of success in terms of getting to the other side, which means maybe the river is shallow, maybe there are less crocodiles, less predators. So that is a sort of explanation behind it. And then now try to reconcile that to someone who comes to Kenya and tells you, actually, I have a plan for helping you guys conserve the environment. And by doing that, I'm going to put a hotel smack in the middle of the migration route. This just shows, as you said, these people, they obviously, conservation is not their concern. What they're concerned is, how do we control African land? How do we control African resources? That has been the motive since what, 1500, and it's still going on today. A lot of us, think, or Barack Obama was the first black president, so black people are free.
Please, don't get me started on Barack Obama.
the former chief of defense, Austin, I forget his other name, is black. So, black people are represented. So why should they complain? You're basically free. But
No,
this just shows
free.
you. Yeah,
there's always been black people who allow themselves to be utilized for the advancement of the establishment and of colonialism and of capitalism, etc. Like that's always been the case. There's always been people who are willing to not be on code. So, and for what it's worth, let me also note, Barack Obama's father is from Kenya. That ends up being like a marriage, right? Because if people don't realize that people don't realize that the United States still functions like a monarchy in terms of who it puts in office and who's connected to what and how that allows for these like continued connections to other countries. And in monarchies, they used to just marry people so that they could have a diplomatic connection. Like it wasn't like, oh, I love this lady. It's like, no, I'm trying to have some bond over here with Germany. So we about to marry you to some German cat. And Obama being Obama being Kenyan, that's what that was about, in my opinion. And by the way, you got Kamala, and she's Indian. And you see they trying to figure out what to do over there. But what else is going on?
Okay, apart from the Masai Mara stuff, we also have officially, I think the warrant of arrest has been issued for a British soldier. So this goes back to 2012, 2013.
Mhm.
Where my whole point is that you have this. She was 21 at the time, and she was killed. She was a Kenyan worker. The reports say she was a sex worker. I think that's like the general understanding of it. So reports one of the British soldiers killed her and then boasted about it on Facebook. And for since 2013 to now, that's what, 12 years, you have the main murder suspect boasting about it on Facebook, but it takes you 13 years to issue a warrant of arrest. And someone made a very good point in that, imagine if the roles were reversed. Imagine it was a Kenyan soldier on British soil who had defiled and killed a British woman. Will
Yep.
it take 13 years to bring that Kenyan man to justice? It obviously won't,
They wouldn't
right?
even be
So,
brought to justice. They would end up being unalived before they even
uh,
got to go to court.
yeah. So this just ties into the whole Mara story again. Basically, that colonialism never really ended. You can see the inequalities in power here. So yeah, that's something major that's been happening around Kenya. Next, our neighbor Tanzania had elections. I'm pretty sure you must have seen about it.
No, I
And
live
the
in the
president,
United States. We don't see about anything.
you
Like
only
I,
see the United
if I
States.
don't, that's why it's so important to have you all come on the show, because the concept that we are on a globe is very new for a lot of Americans, William. We don't get news. We don't get
Understood.
yeah. So
Yeah.
please talk to us like we're 5-year-olds.
Okay. So, Tanzania, we had a presidential election where the main candidate won with 98% of the vote. But, a lot of people have been calling to question, you won with 98% of the vote, but you have to do the swearing in ceremony in a military training ground where zero members of the public are allowed to participate. You have widespread riots covered, and there is not the same level of support in terms of you actually it's the funny thing because you even have like official African bodies like the South African development
Mhm.
community. I think, yeah, you had even them like saying, we have issues with the elections. For one, you guys were intimidating opposition runners. You guys intimidated the media. There's been a series of abductions of key presidential candidates. It's not a level playing field. So for you to win with 98%, you also have to look at, okay, but was the election fair? Which is, it wasn't fair. Now I'm
It's
just
also just not possible.
yeah.
Like that's what always irritates me. I'm just like, why are y'all even at least make it a little more like you tried?
Yeah,
Like
like do 70%. It's bad,
yeah.
but it's not 98%.
Like that's just not true. I mean, no one believes that.
Yeah, so I mean, of course, in certain circles, there have been, I feel, rightful concerns. People have been correctly concerned that maybe the CIA is trying to like overthrow a government. This is something that has happened a lot of times before. This is something the CIA always does. So, this is not a far-fetched idea. But on that, I'm not gonna say it's not possible, but I don't think it's likely. I could be wrong, but I don't think it's likely.
Do
And
you think
the
it
reason
could be?
is,
If it's not that, well, then what do you think it could be? Just
yeah, you
internal
have the
corruption.
Yeah, you have the Chama Pinduzi party, which is the main party. It's been in power since independence. And this is something that I feel applies lately or recently to a lot of African countries, Mozambique, I think Botswana. So when these parties came to power during independence, a lot of Africans had a lot of hope in them. Like, this is what we expect you guys to do. This is how far we want you guys to take the country. But what you have instead is a consolidation of the elite. Yes, the white man left, but the black people he left only look after themselves. This is the
Mm.
case in South Africa. If the last elections was the first time the ruling African National Congress Party got less than 50% since 1994. So this is basically African people sending a message. Yes, you guys gave us independence from white people, but we don't feel like the fruits of independence are being distributed like to each according to their need. So this is the case with CCM, and which is why I think I don't think it's the maybe CIA or some Western intelligence agency involved, because for a time, the country of Julius Nyerere, he had very good, very clear socialist policies in terms of benefit of the many. And then I think 1976, you have this new president coming in, this new chairman of the CCM party, and then he introduces new liberalism. And this is around the time when the IMF is really starting to take root in Africa. And his nickname actually is Mr. Permission. In
Mr.
Swahili, is
Permission?
yes, Mr.
Yeah.
Rukshan, which means he basically permitted any multinational corporation. He opened up Tanzania to the world markets. But the effect of that is one of the conditions of the IMF, as you know, is the state has to step back. The state has to let the private sector step in and control trade and control industry, all that. And one of the consequences of this was that you had industries where the state was involved, which means the state had a direct impact on a lot of ordinary Tanzanians. So Mr. Ruksha comes in, Mr. Permission comes in, and the state pulls back. The consequence of that is now there is mass unemployment. And this is just one. If you look at maybe the running of the cities, it's the basic story around all of Africa. Rents became high, all that, which is, again, a key feature of capitalism. So, starting from the 70s, I feel the CCM, which had very good policies under Julius Nyerere before, changed into capitalism and neoliberalism. And of course, this benefits very few people. It might make the country rich, like South Africa, but this wealth will only be felt by very few people, which means you have many more people who are disenfranchised, more people who do not live a life of dignity. So
Can you
that
give an
I feel,
example of some of the industries?
I'm sorry, I'll have to get back to that. I can get them off the top of my head, but I'll definitely get back to that.
Okay.
Yeah, but I mean, usually it's stuff like maybe cement making, steel making.
I see.
But I don't to like generalize and say something
Yeah.
I'm not sure of. So yeah, I'll have to get back to that. So since the 70s, you have this is the legacy of the CCM. It enriches few people but makes millions more miserable. So it's no surprise that many Tanzanians do not feel a connection to the political process. And I feel what we saw, the discontent we saw, it's not that the CIA came and started manufacturing the discontent in Tanzania. So yeah, that's it for Tanzania. Unless you got anything else, I could move on to Mali. No, I'll come back to Kenya and then to Mali.
All right. We're with you. We're riding. What's next?
Okay. So in Kenya, about a month and 2 weeks ago, we had the death of Raila Odinga, and then of course we had guys like Barack Obama tweeting, I mean, he had an impact, but this impact is something I call to question. He's like a Bernie. Okay, I don't know. This might offend the viewers. I'm sorry, but he's like a Bernie Sanders type of figure,
Yeah,
right?
he's full of
He
it.
preaches. He preaches revolution. He says, the society should be more equal. All the stuff, Medicare for all, inequality is a problem, which is good. And then he gets the chance to in a position to make the change and does nothing. So that's why I make the Bernie Sanders comparison. So for Raila, before 1982, we only had one party. We had a one-party system in the country. This was KANU. This was the Independence Party. And of course, he's credited not by himself, but he was among a body of Kenyans who actively agitated to have multi-party democracy, have less repression by the Daniel Moy regime. So I'll give him that. But my suspicion, which
What
is,
is his name
I mean,
again? I want to find his picture. What's his name?
Raila Odinga,
How do I spell that? Ryla?
as it sounds,
Oh, I
it's
got it. I got it.
yeah,
I always forget. Like, yeah, it's Africa.
it's African.
It's spelled how it sounds. Okay.
So yeah, Raila was a pretty, I say popular figure, which is the biggest tragedy for me because we have millions and millions of Kenyan people who put their trust in him. But every single time Raila had the opportunity to make a difference, he betrayed the Kenyan working class. This is what it's basically he was an opportunist.
It's,
How
it's
the The previous elections, basically every time there's been elections, most of the time, or like 2 or 3 times, he's been robbed of the elections. That's fact. And then, he obviously goes to the streets. He tells his supporters, "Nah, nah, nah, nah. This is not fair. This is not fair. We've got to hit the street. We've got to protest." And then, of course, as I said, this is someone who got more than 50%. So he commands a sizable portion of the country. And when he decides to protest, obviously the country is going to come to a standstill. The economy is going to grind down. So at some point, even if you stole the elections, you have to come and talk to him, because if you don't talk to him, Western companies are not coming to invest in Nairobi because Nairobi is unstable. Simple as that. So that's the sort of power he wielded. But whenever he got the opportunity, okay,
But
we
he
need to talk
wields
to
that
Raila.
power just to be in power. Like, it's not like he uses the power. He just wants to be able to be there. So he goes to the people, he wrangles them up, riles them up, and says, no, put me back in power. Like, don't let them do this to me. And they're like, okay, because he did get something done to him. So he is a victim, but he uses that victimhood just to put himself in power and not to actually utilize his power to help the real victims, which are the Kenyan people who are being misrepresented and neglected.
I couldn't put it better. That's the perfect summary of who Raila Odinga is. And then it goes a step further because, as I said, whenever he comes close to power, he does nothing for the people, but he does something for himself. Usually, there's something called a handshake. In 2007, when I think the first time he ran as president and the elections were stolen from him, the agreement was, okay, we'll share the government 50-50. There were no working class people represented in government. It was people close to him politically, people who are wealthy enough to participate in Kenyan politics. 2007. Next elections happen in 2013. Same thing happens. Uh, so they call, oh, we have to talk to Raila, bring Raila to the table. No, I think that was 2018 because we had Uhuru Kenyatta coming in 2013, runs his 5 terms, and then runs for second term in 2017. And then Raila gets the election stolen from him again. So, of course, he goes to protest. We even had a boycott of 2 major corporations. One, the president's dairy company called Brookside, and two, the main telecommunications company called Safaricom, which is apparently also one of the biggest financial players as well, because it facilitates money transactions. So after, of course, Kenya is unstable. We cannot count on new investments coming in. The Western investors are, they're in jitters. They're not sure that they should invest in this environment. So if we want them to come and give us billions of dollars, we have to speak to Raila. That is exactly what they did. Raila comes in. Again, it's his people who are in cabinet. It's his people who get tenders for maybe supplying oil, sugar, this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Basically, he's in a position to make money from the government, and his friends are in a position to make money from the government. These have been the outcome every single time. So I have this thing where I say, uh, I don't say it's a saying basically that systems should be judged for what they do, not for what they say. So by the same metric, Raila Odinga should be judged for what he did and not for what he said. So in as much as he spoke good game about, oh, I should serve the people, oh, the people are oppressed, he never really put his foot to it when it actually mattered.
But do the people still believe him when he says that?
So I think,
Because that's what
unfortunately,
frustrates
yes.
me here. And see,
Yes. I see if Bernie Sanders was to come again today, you people vote for him, right?
it's interesting because they all kind of do the same thing where they do what's called breadcrumbing, where they kind of they give you just a little bit, enough to whet your palate and make you feel like, oh, look, they gave us something. I mean, I've dealt with this dating, right? Like, you're dating someone and they do a good thing and you're like, look, and then they do a bunch of whack things and you're like, oh, you're whack. But then they're like, no, look, I did this nice thing. And so that is the dynamic. And I'm just like,
Yes.
What is it about the masses that they don't disengage from that? I'm trying to solve this. William, I swear, I feel like if I could just unplug from the United States and just live on the land with no interruptions for 3 months, I could figure it out. I really do.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a matter of discussion. Of course, what I say is not. I don't say like this is for facts, what will rightfully work, but I think it's a problem of political education. People make these poor
Yes.
choices. They make these poor choices because they don't really understand the impact of politics in their lives. A big mobilization technique during Kenyan elections is money. A politician steals from you for 5 years, comes back, gives you $2, and buys your vote. This
Yes.
poli- right? This politician goes back to parliament and makes all that money back. So
Listen,
why
this
can't
is a real
people?
thing here in the United States. This is
Okay,
like a
okay,
very
okay.
real thing that people are now starting to see. They're like, now hold on a minute now. Because like I think a lot of people also didn't realize that politicians are making money. You know, like
Nancy Pelosi.
Nancy Nancy Pelosi has made $200 million since she has been in the House of Representatives.
What's the salary again?
The salary for the House of Representatives is something like 180,000.
Oh, she'd have to work forever to make 200 million.
I
So
just
again, yeah, point is, these politicians, they, it's insulting. It's insulting, really. I give you $1 and I take $100 from your back pocket. That's the entire dynamic. That's exactly how it works in our context, and as I just said, in yours as well. So the question is, why the hell do voters, why the hell does the electorate still make these decisions? And I think it goes back to political education. People don't really realize the fact that these $2 I'm taking right now will cost me healthcare, will cost me roads, will cost me education, will cost me infrastructure. This is something that if someone who didn't give me the $2 and actually had a progressive agenda, if I'd actually voted for him instead, my life will be much better off in 5 years as opposed to these other politicians. But we don't do that. So I think it's a question of we are not properly informed. So it's now I think the hardest task is that, or the toughest pill to swallow is that this is work that has to be done. It's hard, it's grassroots, it's grimy, but there is no other way other than political education. That's once you have an established, educated grassroots, the world is your oyster. That's how I see it. It's a
so
very hard task, but yeah.
Inem was on the show recently and she was talking about how really what's happening in Burkina Faso is possible because there was a really committed effort to political education that took place even before Traore was in power.
Yeah, I mean, you have a lot of the West say, oh, the Burkina Faso authoritarian, or the Burkina Faso dictator, something along those lines. But I usually like to say, before Traore, we had Damiba, who ruled for, I think, less than a year. And it wasn't, okay, before Damiba, we had Compaore. It was Compaore who killed Sankara. I think Compaore ruled Burkina Faso for either 24 or 28 years. But let's remember, it was Burkina Faso people who removed Blaise Compaore from power. These same people gave Damiba a mandate. Then Damiba, instead of doing what the people told him, he still went back in bed with the French. Then the people said, you know what? If you're not going to do what we want, you're also going to go out. So I say Traore is a product of a very pure form of democracy. Americans don't have democracy. The West doesn't have democracy. It's the bankers, it's the landlords, it's the real estate agents, it's the tech bros who control your democracy. How much in bailouts was given to banks in 2008? How much is being given to companies like Nvidia, Microsoft, Palantir right now? How much of that is being given to the normal working class American? So whose interests are being served by this democracy, which America says, oh, we're the world's greatest democracy? But does it show? But for Burkina Faso, you have rapid industrialization, you have rapid construction of infrastructure. You've seen the roads being constructed day and night. In Niger, you have a company, the French company that's been taking uranium for free. I actually call it for free because if I print, if I take a piece of paper, write something on it, put a stamp, give it to you. But in exchange for this paper, I want you to go someplace. I want you to work in the sun. I want you to actually sweat, and I want you to actually bring me something useful. All I have to do is print a paper, write something on it, stamp it, but you have to work. That's free. That's free resources. That's the kind of relationship that France has with these countries or had with countries like Niger. So Niger can't say it and tells France, you know what? Screw off. We're taking our uranium. Orano, get out of here. I'm going to go to
No,
basically
we
it's a
were just letting
perfect
you
segue.
cook. We were just letting
Yeah,
you
it's
cook because you was in here like this. And I said, let me not, I don't want to say nothing because William is chefing it up right now. You were cooking. All right,
yeah. I
let's
was gonna
go
say
now.
it's
Let's go. Let's go. All of
yeah.
us in here, like the chat was even quiet. The chat was like, let me just not interrupt him because he's cooking right now and we need to stay focused. Okay. Flick of the wrist. So let's talk about Mali. Mali is a landlocked country that is bordered by Algeria, Mauritania, Senegal, Guinea, Cote d'Ivoire, Burkina Faso, and Niger. And Mali is part of the Sahel Union, correct?
Yeah, it's actually people give might be the wrong thing to say, but we love Burkina Faso a lot. Traore is our favorite, but I feel we usually overlook Mali. I firmly believe if it wasn't for Mali, Burkina Faso won't get the independence it got. If it wasn't for Mali, Niger won't get the independence it got. Mali was the first country to break away from France in 2020. Mali, it was alone. At least when Burkina Faso was coming in, at least Mali was there. They have someone, hey brother, the French are kind of squeezing us here. Help us. It was something they could count on. But Mali, it's the land of Mansa Musa. Actually, yeah, it's actually maybe poetic that it's the first country, I say in Africa, to actually break free from colonial or neo-colonial chains. So now, recently, just let me not get too carried away. Recently, the multinational corporation Barrick Gold, it's maybe top 10 in terms of mining companies in the world. It's pretty important. They finally come to an agreement with Mali, but this is a problem that started from 2023, so it's something that's taken 2 years for them to resolve. So in 2023, Mali passes a new mining code, and this is now just to show you that while the rest of Africans will say we have democracy because we vote, but the people of Mali actually have democracy because what they want happens for them. Before Goita comes in, I think the rate was 15%.
This is
So for
Goita, y'all.
every,
This is Goita.
that's a
Wait, I
single
want to
grade.
put I want to pin in this. I want to put a pin in this really, really quickly. When you're saying they have democracy because they're getting what they want, and you can come back to this because I know I've already figured out how your brain works. So come back to this when you're done making your point. But I want you to explain to us what you think is this mechanism that allows for that, that's different in other places. Go on.
Mm-hmm. I actually think this is the result of basically the more you oppress people, the more they want you to resist. What is it? Newton's second law of motion. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. So the more you oppress people, the more they resist. Take Israel and Palestine. The more they oppressed Palestinians, the more the likelihood that October 7th was going to happen. This is simply the natural consequence of oppression. So I think the let me not say lucky factor, but I think the important factor here is that, yes, the people of Mali, the people of the Sahel, the people of Francophrique all have very strong opinions towards France, and it's negative. But in terms of what can we possibly do, France is a member of NATO. You saw what NATO did to Libya, to Iraq, to Afghanistan, right? So it has to be someone who has the capacity to effect change.
It's just someone with a backbone. See, that's basically what you're saying. You're literally like,
Yeah.
it's not that deep, Amanda. It's just got to be someone with a backbone.
But yeah, but as well, the backbone has to have a big stick because, as I say, the average civilian might not really have much they can do. And now this is somewhere where usually, if the civilians want this, but in most of the times, the military in many countries are part of the elite. So the elite has an interest in making sure the situation remains the same.
Yes.
Let's not have a change. They benefit from the status quo. So that is why in the other 54 or 50 or 47 other African countries, there hasn't been something similar to what happened in the Sahel, because a lot of these militaries also feed at the trough. In terms of in Kenya, for example, nobody audits what the military gets in terms of, okay, here's the annual budget, the military is getting this amount of money. Nobody ever goes to check, okay, so you guys said you bought this,
I
okay,
mean, they
where
say
is
that
it?
they're doing it here in the United States, but it doesn't mean anything. The Pentagon has failed every audit,
I mean,
which is why
right,
people keep paying taxes. Like people just keep
right.
paying taxes to these people to do whatever they want with them.
Exactly. So maybe if I could use the Pentagon one as an example, do you really expect someone who's maybe a major general who's got a job waiting for him at Lockheed Martin, at Boeing, at Raytheon? Do you really expect him to do a coup that will actively harm the interests of Boeing and Raytheon and whatsoever? It won't happen. So that's exactly what's
Wait,
been happening elsewhere.
you just said something that I feel like I haven't paid attention to, which is that our military itself has an elite class. You know what I'm saying? Like I feel like I
Yeah.
haven't really like the United States military itself has an elite class. And
Yep.
thus even when they get to the certain ranks of the military, they leave the lower ranks, so to speak, not just by designation, but also by like their level of access to also funds and status, and then they get to retain that by pivoting to these other corporations. I think it's the last three or four secretaries of defense for the United States were all CEOs and had all served at major weapons manufacturing companies.
Exactly. So you wouldn't expect Lloyd Austin to suddenly do a people's revolution for the United States of America. It simply won't happen. So I think this is something that was an anomaly in terms of the Alliance of Sahel states, where you have soldiers who are relatively high access in terms of the military hierarchy,
Yeah.
who are also grounded in the people. They
Yes,
see
but
what's happening.
why? But that's what we have to figure out, William. What is it
I hear
about
you.
them? Why were they able to still retain that? Because I can tell you that I'm an anomaly. Like I went to Hollywood, I made it. I'm super talented. I'm pretty. I'm light skinned. Like I could have gone the distance. Okay. Like in terms of capitalism in the United States, I could have really gone the whole distance and got the bigger house. And I could have been a movie star. It never was attractive to me because there was always the groundedness of, yeah, but
Yeah, something doesn't add up. Yeah, I hear you.
yeah.
Yeah.
So like, and I know that that's because I came here apparently with a certain soul, but then I also had a lot of like building while I was a kid. Like I was always hearing Jimmy Cliff, rest in peace, in my house. I was always hearing, like, there was always revolutionary aspects around me that I feel like made their way into my cellular structure from day one.
Mm.
And so I just wonder about these men.
Uh,
That's why every time we have white people on this show that I consider to be high quality whites, I always ask them, how did you get like this? I'm trying to solve something here. So I think about that when you say like these men were able to do a people's revolution because they were high ranking, but still grounded
in the people.
But why? How did they manage to be both? 3 is a lot.
Yeah. I think I'd say it has to do. Remember I said earlier about the every action has an equal and opposite reaction. I think France is among the most vicious neocolonial powers. Niger was the second poorest country in the world. but has been supplying around 30% of of France's electricity.
Let me tell y'all something. When you fly over Niger, you like, what's here? What's here? Like it looks
So
barren, but yet
yeah,
it's
the
not barren
uranium,
because they're stealing everything from it.
exactly. Yeah, the uranium that should have been used to light up Niger was used to light up the Eiffel Tower. And now this is just to show you. France comes and says, yeah, colonialism, and we are friends now. Then why not share nuclear technology with Niger? Why not let them utilize their own resources? And again, this is just to show you the qualitative difference between these governments before and after. I hope I've
But
answered the question in that.
let me also add though, for you guys, when you hear the word nuclear, that doesn't necessarily mean weaponized nuclear utilization. Like nuclear is also used to create electricity, to like actually like make places function. So when we hear nuclear, we always think, oh, so they're going to have nuclear weapons. And that's not, it's being able to refine what you have to utilize it as a source of power.
Definitely. I mean, look. Even if they wanted nuclear weapons, man, there's a reason North Korea hasn't been invaded, and there's a reason Libya has fallen. If Gaddafi had nuclear weapons, maybe NATO wouldn't have killed him and turned Libya into an open air slave market. But again, that's beside the point. So I believe the reason that these three countries were the ones that gave Africa its first revolution is because they are also the most oppressed. You have Niger. Niger gets 70% of its electricity from Nigeria, but Niger's uranium powers 25 to 30% of France. How does that make sense? Right. So I think, fortunately, you also have, but also remember that these military people, they also come from these communities. There's like now this is, I'll say, maybe chance, because there was a chance that someone who's less politically inclined to revolution would have been in the place of Chani, but it was Chani who was there. But even then, we had Bazoum before. Bazoum was the president before General Chiani came in, and Bazoum was a darling of France. Bazoum is the reason why France was getting uranium for free. Then you have Chiani coming in and say, you know what? Yeah, actually, yeah, you're not exporting anymore. What you have in the warehouse, we're gonna keep that. Matter of fact, I think they actually sold their uranium to Russia recently. I'll have to confirm, but yeah, that's
They
one
did.
street.
And people were like, no, they shouldn't do business with Russia either. And it's like, listen, if Russia buying it, sell it. Like they're not giving up their uranium. They said we'll pay you for your uranium.
They're not taking it for free like France.
No.
Basically.
You know what the other thing is, William, is that when we look at these countries, we are thinking about them as individuals in silos, but they're on a globe. And we had, particularly in the United States, we are very much tricked into feeling like the United States is the only thing that's here, and it's not. By the way, my next guest is already here. We've been talking now for damn near an hour because William came and said, "I'm gonna tell y'all about the whole continent." So let's wrap up, Mali.
Let's wrap up, Mali. So yeah. The same thing with Niger taking back its resources. In 2023, Mali introduces the new mining code. Before they were getting, I think, 15%. Then they increased and said, for every operation you guys are doing here, we want 35%.
Yeah.
Then you have this big dog, Barrick Gold, coming and say, you know what, fuck you, man. You're going to give you 35%. So Mali says, that's it. Okay. They arrest the CEO, they arrest a few employees, and they told them, you're going to give us $500 million. And on top of that, the gold that was in the warehouse, they are the same thing with Niger. You're not exporting this gold. This is now under control of the state. And told them, you guys, actually, you have taxes, you need to backdate, all that kind of stuff. So that's what's been happening since 2023. And then you have now, they finally come to an agreement. But before this, actually, Barrick Gold finally went to, I don't think it's a
Gold. That sounds like an Israeli name.
It does actually, yeah. But I think it's Canadian. So they go to
Zionist.
Yeah, same difference. So I think they go to a world arbitration court, and then the proceedings have been going on, but behind the scenes they've also been talking. So now Mali has told Barrick Gold, okay, look, We're gonna drop the case. You are gonna get your license back. We are gonna release your employees, but you're sticking to 35%. That's the rate. And on top of that, I don't know exactly the figure, but they're getting paid millions of dollars, maybe in line with what they told the barrack to pay in terms of back taxes. But yeah, that's basically it. I know, but the point of really is there could be some people that are disappointed. Let's say, Mali should have kicked Barry Gold completely out. And this just goes back to your point earlier, just before I started speaking, where I feel we do not live in an ideal world. Like, so long as the principle of it is rooted in revolutionary spirit. Mali, for example, Mali is not in a position to process its own goal right now. It could use with tactical help from people who are already established. But if they can get a good deal, 35%, I think that's the highest in Africa. 35% of your
And then that
operations are
changes if they,
slowly.
yes, it changes slowly because once you elevate your rate, now it becomes a new precedent that everyone has
Yes.
to respond to.
Has
And
to
now
follow.
you're
Yes.
also controlling the precedent versus the
Yes.
outsider, which is what colonialism has always done. And you
This is
should be
it.
able to control your
Yes.
own precedent. This is why, like,
Yes.
whenever, if an artist tells me that their piece is $20,000, I'm like, okay, I may not pay for it, but like, who
Right?
am
But
I
I
to tell
respect it.
you?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
like,
respect it.
I
Yeah.
respect it. I respect it. Your piece is $20,000. All
Yeah.
right, baby. I
Yeah.
don't got it, but I
Yeah.
respect it. The last thing I'll take away from this, though, that I'm listening to is, you know, what you're saying about France is that they essentially were so oppressive that it was felt by all. There was a universality to the oppression. And so no one remains unscathed. And that is the thing that a lot of places, that's where they messed up, actually.
Actually, I think that's a brilliant point. It might have popped the light bulb because remember in 2011 you have the killing of Gaddafi, and the consequence of that is, if I was to ask you right now, what three places you think are famous for terrorism? The Middle East is gonna be somewhere at the top of your list.
I mean, you're talking to
But
me.
after
I'm going to
Gaddafi,
say the United States. And then I'm going to say,
okay, oh
first,
fair,
first
and
I'm going to
then
say Israel. Then I'm going to say the United States. And then I'm going to say England. So
okay. So, but
that's
the
me.
average person will maybe say, the Middle East is somewhere here, right? But since Gaddafi fell, the Middle East is now at the top list. You have the Sahel. So this is the place with the most terrorism-related deaths in the world. In 2022, it was 8,700 people killed by terrorists.
But who are
And
the
remember, among this,
terrorists?
the terrorists were the same people NATO armed and funded to kill
Yes.
Gaddafi. So they kill Gaddafi, and it's like, okay, we have guns, we have cars. What do? We go south, right?
Yeah, but they
So from
continue to be
2011,
armed. Like, I've seen enough movies. They're armed and they are absolutely being controlled and influenced and in cahoots with some white guy in khakis who wears, sunglasses and looks very nondescript, but is absolutely out there. Haven't y'all ever seen
yeah.
Sicario? There's some white man who's showing up in a shirt with a loose it'll be a t-shirt, but the collar is really loose, like it's been put on too many times. And he's just showing up and having these real casual conversations because he's the cool white guy,
And it
Hey,
has the
listen,
aviator glasses
yes, he has oh my God. William, you nailed it. He has aviator glasses. Yes.
and
And
maybe a mustache.
a mustache, and he's just there, and he's wearing flip-flops indiscriminately, and he's like having these conversations with these folks, and then he comes back and sits in a meeting at Langley and says, well, this is what they're going to do now.
That's exactly what. I mean, another key story I might have glossed over in the interest of time was that there was a plan to collapse Mali a few weeks ago. Mali has been under a severe fuel shortage because the terrorists have been ambushing fuel trucks. You remember, Mali is a landlocked country, so every bit of fuel they get has to be shipped in by trucks. Now, these terrorists have been ambushing these trucks, but somehow, now this is where, I mean, it goes back to the point where I say, let's not be idealistic. Yes, we want Mali, Burkina, Niger to be free, but to get there, they have to make partnerships with certain countries. I must say this. If it wasn't for Russian cooperation, I don't think the AES will be viable as a state as it is today. Because from the very moment Mali kicked out France, France has been trying to knock down Mali. Now, here's a quick question. Do you reckon, on everything kept constant, do you think Mali will be able to defeat France? They don't have the same level of resources. France is a member of NATO, has access to maybe all the satellite networks in the world, has access to CIA intelligence, is the one actively funding these terrorists. So it's unfair to tell Mali, no, don't take help from anyone, don't cooperate with anyone,
Fair.
fight
Yeah.
them on your own.
Yeah.
They'll fail. We do not want to perpetually cry, oh, they killed Sankara, oh, they killed Lumumba, oh, they killed Nkrumah. This is something that actually works for the interests of Africans. Goita, Traore, Chani are not working for Westerners. They're not working for the Chinese. They're not working for the Russians. They're working with the Russians, which is something completely different from being under the Russians. So I feel it's a relationship of mutual respect, and it's far different from what France was doing. And the only reason France is still financing these terrorists is to take control back of Mali. Let's remember that Mali is one of the biggest gold producers in Africa, and you've seen the price of gold in recent months.
I have not,
So
but
yeah,
is it popping?
it's popping, it's
Okay.
high, it's soaring. So yeah, I'm just saying, it's going to be realistic. I think the cooperation they have is very productive. Russia actually helped Mali overcome the fuel shortage. So yeah, all good, all good. And I think that's about it.
Well, thank you so much, William, for tapping in and telling us what's going on in the motherland. It's very valuable information for us. And as per usual, we have to point out that you have nice hands. William's got the best hands in the game, y'all. I mean, let's just give it up for William's hands and also the knowledge. As we informed you before, if this whole being a smart black man thing doesn't work out, you can always be a hand model. All right. So just know that there's another route for you if you need it. Looking forward to having you back on the show. And thank you once again for sharing not only your information and knowledge, but your insights, right? Because that's the other thing is that, and I'm going to show a video about this later, but the people of the motherland of Africa need to be able to speak for themselves. And so often I feel like we're getting the information from you all through third parties that are doing their own assessments based on what always ends up being a colonialist perspective. So appreciate you, appreciate Africa Stream and all the good things. Amanda.